So what is fixed route transit? So there's two main types of transit. There's the fixed route and there's the flexible, being more the demand response. So, and it's vehicles running along established paths and predefined schedules. So when we hear transit, that's what most people are thinking of. Sometimes transit companies also have, variations of fixed route transit. So say an express bus. So a bus that maybe skips a lot of stops to get people from, say, the suburbs downtown to work quickly. So who are our customers? So typically medium-sized public transit agencies and post-secondary institutions is the majority of them. So for instance, ones that are close by to the Mississauga office would be, say, like Burlington or Brampton, and close to the Calgary office would be city the size of Lethbridge. So we also get post-secondary institutions. So those are typically the bigger institutions in the United States, like Texas A&M University. We also have customers that are service providers. So what a service provider does is go in and runs transit on behalf of, a city or an entity or an agency. Sometimes they just run the operations and provide the drivers, and other times they actually provide the vehicles as well. So what are the pain points and challenges that our customers face? So one of them is shifting demographics, so shifting expectations. So there's a lot of talk about millennials. So millennials, they're going to choose the transit option that works best for the trip that they want to take, whether that's going to be driving, taking something like Uber, taking transit, going on foot or on bike, and a combination of those. So one of the reasons that they say millennials like transit is they can do things like do some work while they're in transit, get on Facebook and do social media, that type of thing. So, they have high expectations. They've grown up with technology, so they expect to have, reliable systems, real-time updates, even things like being able to access, Wi-Fi in transit. So another thing is ADA compliance. So we interface into systems like annunciators and wayside signs, to help people with visual or hearing impairments. So a lot of times when people think of ADA, they're thinking of physical access, like a wheelchair, but there's the other access considerations as well, and our systems help support that. So unbalanced ridership. So one of the, challenges that they have that we try to help them with is the fact that, during busy times, people can't even get on a bus, and in other times, the buses are running around empty. So, we can help them collect data and plan better around that. Accessible and reliable data. So with that, people are looking for the data that can help NTD reporting, understand their ridership, that type of thing. So financial sustainability. So that's important because a lot of transit companies are reporting that, their fare collections are only covering about 26% of their operations cost. So that's telling you that there's, an unequal balance in that fare collection. So we want to be able to make them be more efficient in offering their services. So another thing is integrating disparate systems. So, some transit agencies have put on cameras or automatic passenger counters or fare boxes. They've spent a lot of money and effort to put those systems onto their buses, and they want to be able to integrate those into their ITS system, their intelligent transit system that they get from us. Technology expertise is another huge challenge for our customers. So they often don't have the IT resources that a bigger agency would. And sometimes you're talking about, schedules or dispatchers that have come up through the ranks and they're now running the transit agency. So they don't have that background in technology. So the other thing is customer dissatisfaction. So like we said, there's the millennials, and people are having higher expectations of their transit companies, both from a performance and an information point of view. So actually, Forbes published this study that they did on top reasons customers give up on public transit. So things like delayed on board due to transit vehicles backed up, and we'll talk a bit later about how we help with that. Long wait times at transfer stops, missed departure due to wrong real-time information, so being unable to board due to crowding, delayed on board due to emergency or mechanical failure, long waits at the origin stop, ran to the stop but the bus or the train and pulled away, or delayed on board due to traffic. So, you know, a lot of those things our streets can help solve. Some of them we can't. But one thing we can do is provide real-time information to the passengers and the transit companies. So what do our customers tell us that's important to them? They want a system that is easy to use. So as mentioned, a lot of the people that are in the transit company, they may be drivers that have moved up to be schedulers or dispatchers, and then, you know, scheduled dispatchers that have moved up to maybe managing the transit company. Effectively communicating real-time information. So things like passengers are wanting to know, you know, when their bus is going to be there. So it could be in the form of a wayside sign. It could be in the form of, you know, real-time passenger information application like MyRide. Could be SMS. The integrity of the data is very important. So both to passengers and the people like dispatchers running the transit. So that said, that information, that real-time information isn't going to be of much use if the performance of the buses is poor. So again, Streets helps with that. Tracking and managing drivers, so what their work is, who they are, absence management is a big piece. Ability to integrate with existing investments. So as mentioned previously, you know, they've got automatic passenger counters, fare boxes, they want to be able to integrate with that. Support an interface with Google Transit, so the GTFS files. So unfortunately, Google's pretty finicky about those files. So the easier we can make it for our customers, the easier that they can integrate with that Google Transit. Stability and reliability of the product. So the transit companies that we deal with often do not have the technical expertise to troubleshoot and resolve issues. So the product needs to be very stable for them, and then in the instances where they are having issues, you know, having ongoing support to help them resolve them. And, you know, at the end, it's responsiveness and open communication. It's about developing positive relationships with our customers. So, you know, even in the face of issues, as long as we have a good relationship, things can be worked through. So how do our customers finance a fixed route solution? So fare revenues obviously can fund a portion of it. So a lot of states use sales tax. There's also the Federal Transit Administration, so they will fund both operational costs as well as capital costs to buy new systems and new buses. So that funding's based on the population density, and then for bigger agencies, they also take into account bus revenue, vehicle miles, and bus passenger miles. And then there's other various state and other government funding. So, and there's some new funding coming on board in the United States targeted at transit, and there's also some funding coming on with our new government for Canada. So what components make up a fixed route solution? So this is not an exhaustive list of what we have within the Streets portfolio, but basically centers around sort of three main areas. One is the back office, so where we've got Streets schedule, dispatch, reports, and admin. Then you've got what's on the bus. So it's, you know, the ranger being at the center of that with annunciators, head signs, digital signage. So, and as I mentioned, you know, we can integrate into fare boxes, APCs, that type of thing. And then there's the passenger information, so the MyRide app, MyRide SMS, MyRide IVS, and then the wayside signs. So Streets admin in the office, so that's the application that often it might be the scheduler that's maintaining it or whoever's maintaining the system. So that's where agencies can manage and maintain employee and vehicle information. They can configure what we call events, so like speeding going in and out of geofences, that type of thing. So we have 20 predefined events, and agencies can create their own events as well to meet their specific needs. The admin app is where they set up and manage the user groups and permissions, so that's the security of the application. They can create canned messages that can be used between drivers and dispatchers. So things like, asking them to slow down and that type of thing if vehicles are bunching. And then customize other aspects of streets to meet specific agency needs. So things like nomenclature that's used and that type of thing, or where they've got their facilities and things like that. So street schedule. So this is typically used by transit planners. So this is another application. So as I said, there's 4 of them. So in larger agencies, that person responsible for identifying bus stops is sometimes different than the person creating the schedules. With the agencies that we typically deal with that size, they're usually one and the same person. So these planners or schedules typically will create 2 to 4 new schedules a year. So some more, some less. One nice thing is they can work on a schedule over a period of time and continue building on that. And then once it's posted, so they want to make it real, it's automatically pushed out to the dispatch application, pushed out to the ranger on the buses, and pushed out to the MyRide application. So that's a huge feature that this is automatically happening. There's different service levels, so people that aren't familiar with the terminology, as probably most of you are, but the service levels, like on a weekday, you'll have one type of service level that buses are running more frequently and maybe running to areas of the city where there's a lot of industry. On the weekends, they may not have as many buses going, and they may not even have some buses going in certain places. So they can manage bus stops, patterns, and routes. So they can just get on a map and create dots, and those dots they can connect to create patterns, and then from that define routes. They can define trips, blocks, and runs. So that's where you're starting to put together patterns, and as well as assigning work to buses as well as to riders. So they can create and assign drivers to rosters. So what happens is you've got all the work that's available for that particular schedule, then drivers can sign up for what work they want to do, and then their names get populated in Street Schedule to create that roster. So they can configure and manage vehicle peripherals and passenger information signs. So in other words, the scheduler is getting on there and saying, okay, 300 feet from this bus stop, I want you to announce that, bus stop XYZ is coming up. So, and that can be configuring the annunciator, so the audio as well as the passenger information sign. So they can go in and modify routes to address short-term service disruptions. So this is the optional service interruption module. So say that you know that there's going to be construction in a certain area of the city that usually a bus will run through. So rather than having to redo the entire schedule to accommodate for that, what they can do is actually create this service interruption, and it will temporarily reroute the buses to around where that construction is. And the nice thing about this is it kind of layers over top of the normal schedule. So say I have 2 schedules in the year, say the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and this construction's covering both those schedules. There's some aspect there. It can actually transcend a schedule, so they don't have to go and modify it again. So, and as mentioned previously, all this is automatically pushed out to streets, dispatch rangers, and MyRide once it's posted. So this is just a view of Street Schedule in the office. So you can see a number of dots on the map there. So really the scheduler just has to click those dots, and then they join together to create the route. So some of those dots, you'll see the red one there is labeled bus stop. So that's a bus stop along the route. they can actually configure a dot on the map to be a time point, and that's typically when you see a static schedule, you'll see the time points of when a bus is coming to that point. So, and then waypoints are just, you know, the dots that are creating the pattern. So here's just another view of street schedule. So the one in the upper right-hand corner there, that's the service day calendar worksheet. So you can see there's different services. So we've got a weekday and a weekend, and this one's sort of in the December-January time frame. So, you know, they've got a school break. So if the buses are typically serving high schools and other schools, you don't need them. So it's a special service where you've taken those buses off route, and as well as there's a holiday schedule in there. So that would probably be fairly reduced service. On the bottom of the screen here, you've got the block worksheet. So that's actually where you're creating the blocks and creating the buses work. So what you want to do is maximize, you know, the in-service of your bus. So this allows us to visually do that. So Streets Dispatch, this is a day-to-day operations application. So it has two components to it, the automatic vehicle location and computer-aided dispatch. So with the automatic vehicle location, they're able to locate vehicles, bus stops, addresses, point of interest that are then displayed on the map. So this is useful for both the dispatcher, but the dispatcher may also be the person answering the phone, getting questions from people, how do I get from, you know, point A to point B? So they can use Streets Dispatch AVL View to do that. Sometimes there's a need for dispatchers to send ad hoc announcements to the buses. So we talked about how we can configure peripherals in Street Schedule, you know, sort of to create those canned announcements. But you know, there's often sometimes the need to have these ad hoc ones. An example that might be, you know, there's an accident, so the bus is going to be delayed. So the dispatcher can push that out to the bus. The bus driver isn't going to need to, you know, take his eyes or her eyes off the road and do that. Another example is, you know, I've seen happen in Calgary is announcing the score of a Flames game, that type of thing. So the other useful feature in the dispatch application is being able to review the vehicle history. So dispatchers can pick a 24-hour period, any 24-hour period back to the start of time or when they implemented Streets, and you know, see the pattern or the route that bus traveled that day, and then they can click on certain aspects or certain points on the pattern to see, you know, what time did the person arrive? Was it on-time performance? What speed they were going? So this is really useful if they, say, get a call from the public and say, you know, the bus didn't come to the bus stop today. So the dispatcher could very quickly go in and determine if that was true or not. Or the bus was speeding through playground zones, so they can find on the map where that playground zone is and see what speed the bus was actually doing. So the other thing they can do is manage employee absences. So in Street Schedule, you create the roster, but you are going to get people that are going to be, you know, off work because of illness, or, you know, they might be on holidays, that type of thing. There's the spare board routes, so ones that aren't staffed on a daily basis and get filled in by spares. So the dispatcher is able to do that using Streets Dispatch. Or say, for instance, you know, there's a driver and the driver's away. I've only got somebody that can do half the shift. Through Streets Dispatch, you can actually split that work and give part to the one driver and part to the second driver. So here's just a couple of views of Streets Dispatch. So the one up on the right is sort of the AVL view, and that's the main map view. So you can see on here, I can see various routes. I can see buses and drivers, who's driving them. I can click on a bus and see details about that bus. So with this one, we've got Raymond driving it. We know that he's 39 seconds late. We know where his next stop is. I can see information about his route. And then as well as if they have, they're counting passengers on the bus, can actually see the capacity of the bus. So right now I can see that he's driving around with an empty bus. So the other view here is the route monitor view, and this is a different view of seeing bus performance. So is the bus on time? Is it late? The nice thing here is that I can also see what the headway is. So are the buses bunching together? So you want to spread out your buses. So say, for instance, if I'm looking at the Barton one there and looking at that middle bus, the dispatcher could actually send a note to that middle bus and say, slow down a little bit to sort of balance the route a bit more. So here's a view of the vehicle history that I spoke of. So you can see the breadcrumbs on the trail, and I've sort of selected 959 Brant Street, so I can see that he was going 64 kilometers an hour at that point in time. So I'll venture a guess that maybe he might have been speeding, because in the city, typically 50 kilometers an hour is the limit. So, I would have that information. This can also be saved and played back later. So I wouldn't have to redo the search again if I did want to say, keep evidence of driver behavior. So the other component of Streets Dispatch is computer-aided dispatch. So that contains the event management, so those events that we created in Street Schedule, the work management, so what are the drivers doing and buses, and then the transfer window. So examples of the events that might be managed are, speeding, the route adherence, geofences, and silent alarms. So in some cases, say the geofence, I want to know when this bus comes back into the yard. The dispatcher may not want to do or need to do anything about it, but say, for instance, on a speeding event, the dispatcher may want to get involved. And then definitely, if you've got a silent alarm, it brings it to the dispatcher's attention so that he or she can do something about it. So you can manage, plan, and view current and future term work. So things like, as I said, the absence management, and view current and pending transfers and override automatic approval rejection as appropriate. So one of the things that Street supports is where actually on the bus the driver can request a transfer on behalf of the riders, and depending on some rules that are on the system, it will approve or deny based on those rules. So rules might be the timing of when the two buses are going to be in the same area. The dispatcher has the ability to override and say, no, I'm going to approve this transfer, and maybe I'll send a message to the second bus driver and tell him to hold on for a bit. So this is just the view of the CAD screen. So in the top left there, you've got the event management. So those are events that came in. So on the right-hand side is the work management. So you can see here, it's got the work items of what's being done that day by Joe Street, driving bus 06 there. So pulling out, and then you see the various trips that he's doing there. And then the bottom, I don't have any information in there because this is a simulator that I pulled this from, but basically that's where the dispatcher would control the transfer functionality. So again, this is the dispatch view. So just to give you an idea of what can be done in the work management screen. So by selecting work, I can get information about a driver's job for the day, and I can assign work to drivers. I can also say right-click on a vehicle. Say a driver's forgotten to log on to Ranger as a dispatcher. I could do that remotely, or remotely log a driver off. In the work detail window, you can see, the list of work such as trips, deadheads, walk-around inspections contained in the piece of work, so the work being what the driver has to do. On the work management view, that's where I can get in there and assign unassigned work. So like I said, the spare board, the timetable, so through that view I can monitor the real-time progress of every trip, see the last stop that the bus was at in its trip, and find out whether the bus is running on time. So, one thing about Streets is it offers multiple ways to get the same information. So as we saw on the map, we could also see if the driver was running late, and as well as the route view, we can see that. So the Today gives the real-time status of all employees and vehicles. And then the planned off route is where it allows to say that, you know, we know that this driver is going to go off route. So say things, there's an accident, so the driver is going to have to do a temporary detour. The way that we've got the route adherence set up, that it would send an event to the dispatcher under normal circumstances because the bus isn't on the route that it's supposed to be. What this allows is the dispatcher to go in and say, I know he's going to be off route, so I don't want to get events when he's off route in that particular area. So, and then the other thing is service disruptions. So the service disruptions that we set up in Street Schedule, that's where the dispatcher can go in and see the details of those disruptions. So Streets reports. So that's the fourth sort of application that is in the Office suite of Streets. Now this is a bit different in that it's a web-based application, but it provides the ability to generate predefined and edited reports. They can be in a tabular format or a graphic format. They can be exported in a variety of file formats. So, you know, you might put it into Excel format because I want to manipulate some data and things like that. I might, you know, send it out in a PDF doc. You know, I might use it in presentations. One of the things that it does is supports NTD reporting, which is important for agencies because they have to provide certain reporting on a regular basis to be able to be eligible for federal funding. So here's just some examples of the reports view. So on the top right there, you can see the list of reports that are available. Off to the right there, you can see where I've sort of wanted to get a report on scheduled revenue miles. So if I were to scroll down, I'd be able to see Saturday, Sunday, weekday, that type of thing. And then the one to on the bottom left, that's the number of missed trips on a route. So it's graphically sort of highlighting where the trips were missed. So Streets Mobility on the bus. So Streets Mobility is the software that we install and runs on the Ranger. So it allows real-time communication with dispatch. So the nice thing is it's set up with those canned messages that we set up in Street Schedule. So, you know, the nice thing is it's minimizing driver distraction. So a lot of the communication is standard. And then when messages say come from dispatch to the driver, actually the dispatcher can say, you know, I want a response and I want a yes or no response. So when it comes to the driver, there's a yes button and a no button, and they click the appropriate response. Color-coded screens show schedule adherence. So for an example, you know, it will be the amount that they're late will say be in blue, and amount that they're early could be, you know, running hot is what they call it, could be in red. And it can be configured, you know, what the acceptable duration is for defining something of late or early. So that can be configured when we set them up. So the Ranger provides the data used by Streets Dispatch. So things like, and then single point of log-on for drivers. So for instance, if you've got a fare box, you know, often you need to log those on, so we can hook those into Ranger, and when they log into Ranger, they're logging onto the fare box at the same time. So, and then central control for all peripheral devices. So, you know, used to be that when a driver was moving to a different route or something, that they had to go up and change their sign. So the Ranger will trigger this happening automatically, so the driver doesn't have to do that. So this is just a picture of the Ranger. So that is on the buses. So it's a fairly simplistic display. Easy to use. And then on the back, I've provided a view of the back because this is where we can hook in all kinds of peripherals and things to the Ranger and allow the single sign-on and trigger enunciators and things like that. So MyRide. So MyRide we've had for a while. We've released the last few months a new version of MyRide, and we have some customers up and running with it. MyRide's great. It provides automatic geolocation. So if I'm standing in Lethbridge, then it will know exactly where I am, and I can actually, you know, if I want to go to the university, it knows my starting point is where I'm standing, say at the hotel. It provides real-time passenger information. So passengers can see the current location of buses on a dynamic interactive map. So I can see when the bus is approaching me. It provides estimated times for upcoming buses. So it can be configured to provide upcoming buses 1, 2, or 3, so I can see when they're coming. It also indicates to me, is that information based on the schedule, or is that information based on the information that's coming from the GPS? It has integrated advanced trip planning. So what this allows me to do is plan a trip where I want to go from point A to point B, and it doesn't have to be right now. I can actually, if I'm going somewhere next week and I want to sort of plan when I have to leave the house because I need to be there at 4 o'clock, I can say this is where I'm going to start, this is where I need to be, and I need to be there, arrive by 4 o'clock, and it can provide that. It also provides online access to what we sort of know is a static schedule. It's not entirely static, though, because in the current day you can actually see if it's real-time information based or not, if it's just schedule information. But I can also go into the future and look a couple weeks out, what's the schedule going to be on that route. The other thing that MyRide offers is SMS capability and MyRide IVR. So, and then the other thing is it's agency brandable. So if you get on myride.lethbridge.com, you can actually see that it's been branded for Lethbridge. It's not branded TripSpark. So this is a view of MyRide for the transit customers. So this is the application. So what we have here is it's running on a phone, it's running on a tablet, it's running on a laptop. So it fits the form for each of those devices. Anything I can do on one, I can do on the other device. So we don't limit certain functionality to a laptop or certain functionality to the mobile device. Some of our competitors don't do that. They only say provide trip planning on say, a desktop. So I'm just going to actually pull up MyRide here, and I've got a simulator going. So this is actually Lethbridge's website, their MyRide. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here if I can. So this is MyRide. So you can see I can enter my destination. One thing, as I said, it has geolocation. So it says city center. We can set up a default to city center because I'm denying it to know my location. If I was in Lethbridge, then I would allow the application to know my location or my phone to know my location. It would give me that instead. So, but say I wanted to go to the University of Lethbridge. As you can see, I don't need to know the address for the University of Lethbridge. Again, I think that's a competitive advantage for us because we don't need to know the address. And I can hit go, and then it's going to give me different options. So I can say pick, I want to start in 44 minutes. So I can pick that. It's going to give me a map to, and then as well as it's going to give me, you know, sort of instructions, when I have to leave, where I need to go, that type of thing to get there. So the other thing I can do is I can look at the map and pick routes. So say I want to see, okay, I want inbound University. So then I can see, oh, and there's no buses on that one right now from the looks of it. I'll try to pick one that does. I'll pick a couple more. So there you can see. So those are the buses running along the routes. The ghosted ones are the routes running in the opposite direction. So say we have Route 1 inbound and outbound. I have, say, outbound in focus, so this one would represent the inbound bus, whereas this one represents the outbound bus. So again, one of the things that we do in MyRide well is we update the information. So some competitive solutions, you actually have to keep refreshing the information. But I can click on that bus and I can see what bus it is and get information about it. I can also click on stops and get information about the stops. So I know that I've got a bus coming in 10 minutes and another one in 34 minutes. This little symbol here indicates that it's real-time information that's providing this prediction. So, and then, as I mentioned, we've got the static schedule. So here we've got the, these are buses that have been passed in the morning. These are the upcoming buses. But as I mentioned, if I want to see what's happening on, say, Saturday, here is the schedule for Saturday, so I can get an idea of what's going on there. So the interesting thing, or the great thing about MyRide is we can actually add some custom tabs for our customers. So in this case, Lethbridge wanted to be able to communicate their fares. So that information is in there, as well as they have information on how to use the cell phone SMS. So even though this is a smartphone providing this information, with Lethbridge being a college and university town, a lot of students will use Wi-Fi on their smartphone when they're at the university or at home, but they may not have data enabled, so that SMS functionality is important for them as well, or people that don't have smartphones necessarily. So just going back here. So I can create favorites. So you can see here, I've created a favorite. It's as simple as just clicking on it, so a route or a stop, and then I can go in and I can manage my favorites. So say this favorite here, so that location, that bus stop, that might be where I live. So I'm going to make that home. So, and that now is going to be my favorite. So if I go back, I should be able to make that home, but favorite. Sorry, it didn't save that because I did it wrong. I clicked in the wrong box. So here we go. And my destination is to go home. So I'm just going to pull the slide back up again. So, and that is all of our street software. Any questions?
I have one question, Tanya.
Okay.
This is Joe. Have you had a chance yet to look at kind of how Streets compares to Trapeze's kind of FX and CAD systems, and kind of you know, what some of the key differences are and kind of what the Streets advantages are at all?
Not in great detail. I don't know much about their CAD system. With the FX, my understanding is that a lot of what the schedulers and dispatchers do manually, that it has some algorithms that can, say, assign work in a more automated fashion. But I haven't done a deep dive in it yet, no.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me by email or links, or Skype, I should say.